Hey, how's it going? In this video, we're going to go over a little keylight script that I wrote that lets you set a solid color wallpaper on your monitor. I'm using SwayBG to set my wallpaper. If you're using a different tool, that's no problem. You can just swap out the command. In this video, we're going to go over demonstrating how to use the tool as well as how it's implemented. We're going to be dealing with state files too, which is pretty interesting. Now, for example, I record quite a few different YouTube videos. I have two monitors. Right now, I am looking at my 32-inch 4K monitor, and then off to the right, which the one that you don't see here, I have another monitor that has a solid white background using this little keylight script. So if I run the keylight script here, on that output here, it's going to toggle that key light off. So look at my face here on the webcam. Maybe it's a little bit dark. Now it's getting a little bit brighter. It still doesn't make a huge difference because right in front of us here, notice I have a very dark terminal here that's kind of consuming everything. Although technically I even have a little LED light to the left of my monitor here reflecting off the wall back at me. But yeah, this darkness here kind of takes over that. But what I could do, maybe if I'm doing some videos where I'm doing an interview with other people or, just chatting with some friends, maybe I don't have a big full screen terminal, I can also apply this key light to all the different monitors just by not putting in that output flag there. And in this case here, you could see it's applied to both of them. And if I get rid of that terminal, you can see right away my face looks a lot brighter. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, I have been using Windows in the past, and I switched over to native Linux around like 8 or 9 months ago on the desktop. And when I recorded a lot of videos in Windows, maybe my webcam looked a little bit better. That's because so let me get rid of this white background, by the way, just so we have the back to before. But yeah, in any case here, back in the day when I was using Windows there, what I ended up doing was I have the 4K monitor. I always recorded just a little 1080p section of my screen, and then I surrounded that section with just notepads, which are basically, little white windows around there to brighten up my face. But now I've been recording my entire desktop. I could always do the same thing on Linux as well. But in this case here, I just wanted a quick win to be able to set a key light on and off. So, I didn't go over this specifically, but, as you just toggle it here, it goes on and off, on and off, on and off. You can also pop in a custom color if you want. For example, if you wanted to use green for whatever reason, you could totally do that. Let me maybe do this one on the whole thing here so you can see the background recorded on video as well. Here, my face is now shaded green, kind of look like an alien. I wouldn't suggest doing that, but if you wanted to do it, you can totally do it. But yeah, it will use the latest color as well. For example, if you do something like this, where you just set different color, maybe like yellow, and then you want to set maybe back to white or something, it's just going to overwrite with the latest one that you have. But again, if you rerun it with the latest one, then it's going to toggle it off. So it's really super simple to use. But let me go back to how I had things before here, just using the default color of white here on my second monitor. And there we go. So yeah, now let's go over maybe how this is implemented a little bit. And if you're using .fried rice already, which is available here, I've done videos about that in the past, then the keylight script is good to go. So that's going to be in local bin here, and then keylight in case you want to go and check it out. If you're not using .fried rice, maybe you just want to copy paste some stuff here from the script. But yeah, let's go over it here and go and check it out. So it's going to be the keylight script here. And yeah, it's not too long, whatever, 79 lines of code, maybe half of that are comments here, kind of just shows you how to use it. And yeah, if you're not using Neri, then maybe you want to adjust some of this here because, the .fried rice setup, it also works for terminal environments too, where you might not be using the full desktop environment with Neri. So I just wanted to exit early if it's not there. And then yeah, we need to do a couple of different things here. So for one, I wanted to set this idea of a default color, right? I don't want to have to always pop in -- color or -C here for short. So it just falls back to using white. And if you always want to use a different color that's not white, you can always export this environment variable in your shell here, and then you'll be good to go here, and it'll overwrite whatever the default value is here. But then we need to keep track of a couple of different arguments being passed in. So we're going to be, setting the color here. That's right now just the default color. And then color requested is basically, did you, as a user of the script, pass in -- color or -C? You could see here that's set to 1 when that's happening here. But yeah, now we're just going to be looping over all the different arguments being passed in the script. I've done videos around parsing arguments in Bash, but in this case here, maybe let's go over the star case here, which is going to pass through all the arguments just as they are, build up this little args variable here in an array. Then this is going to get passed in over to SwayBG, which is a tool that I use to set the wallpaper. Now, in your case here, if you're not using SwayBG, you can always change this to be something else, but you can see here's all the arguments being passed in. It's not a big deal to change that to a different tool if you want. But in any case here, going back up here, yeah, if color is passed in, then yeah, we're going to set our color to be, whatever value that was passed in, -- color, and then maybe it's green or white or whatever color that you wanted here. And then yeah, we actually add the flag here, the color flags to the args, so they're passed in. Because the idea here is with this little if condition, right after we got through all the different arguments here, is if we didn't pass in a color, then we do want to add the color flag, because when we call SwayBG here down on the bottom, we always do want to pass in the color flag. But yeah, again, our script is just optionally handling that for us. Then we're going to deal with a custom state file here. Basically, we're going to save some things to a file that just lives in memory here, and it's going to allow us to track how the script is being run. For example, if there is no keylight active, then we're just going to start the keylight. And the keylight in this case is just setting whatever color that you want. And if you rerun the script again with the same exact color, the key light is already active, then it's going to stop the key light, basically killing that SwayBG process here. And that's going to restore whatever wallpaper that you may or may have had beforehand. And then also if you choose a different color here, maybe it's been active and with white and now you're choosing to use green or something like that, then it's going to replace that key light here, basically killing off that old SwayBG process here and creating a new one there with a new color. And all of that is facilitated here with if statements and a couple different conditions here in that state file. So the idea with the state file is we're going to save the PID of SwayBG here because when you run SwayBG here, it's just running in the background. Then that is going to create a process ID. So we can go and take a look at that now. For example, if I just pop open a new window here, we do the key light, it is already running now. But if I do something like this and we just grep out SwayBG, and again, if you're not using SwayBG, then you can change this. Now this is my normal wallpaper, right? The normal background that we see right here. But we also have this second process running, which is the color that we set here from how it's been set before. So the idea here is in the state file, if I go and check that out, we can just go cut that out in what was the path here. It is your runtime directory here, which is going to be cat, and then we can go run, and then user, and then 1000, and then the state file here is going to be keylight.state. Now that's basically what this environment variable resolves to here. You can see that, and if it's not set, then it's going to fall back to using temp directory. But yeah, xtg runtime dir is a good spot for this one. Lives in memory here. You'll notice that there's some socket files in there and some other things. It's a reasonable spot to store the state file. But we can see the state file here has the actual PID here. This value here. And you can see that aligns up with the PID value here, and then also it tracks the color being used, which is this color here, because we want to overwrite this one basically if we're choosing a different color. But if it's the same color, then we want to toggle that off. So that's going back down to here to all of these different conditions that we have here. So, starting here, we have this read here for the PID and the current color. We're going to get that from the state file here, assuming the state file exists. Because if it doesn't exist, then it's the first run, then basically we just run SwayBG here, and we write out the state file here on the very bottom here. And this is just getting the PID of SwayBG itself, by the way, little shortcut for that, which is pretty nice. But yeah, first things we want to do here inside the condition, assuming the state file exists, we have these variables in here because the state file has them. It's going to be like, okay, well, let's see if the process actually exists, but we're not going to send any kill signals to it. So the -0 here is going to be like, hey, by the way, does this PID exist here? And again, this is the variable from up here. And if it does exist, then we're going to kill it. Then after it's killed, we have potentially something to do here. So we're going to stop the key light, which restores your wallpaper if the current color, which again is in the state file here, happens to be the same exact color that you passed in before. So this now is going to remove the state file. We no longer need it here, and it's going to exit out the script because we're completely done. So this is the case here where we are toggling, right? So we're going to be basically turning the key light off. But, in this case here, if that process doesn't exist, because now we're in the else condition here, then we have basically a stale state file. So for example, I can always go and just kill off this process right now, and that's going to be done outside of, that little keylight script here. So that would be the trigger here for potentially one way just to clean up this state file the next time that you run the script here. So for example, it doesn't really matter, but I guess we can do this and just go something like echo, and then I'll just put in some dots there. And if I were to go and kill this 893565, right, then my key light just went away on the second monitor. You didn't see that one here. But if we go and run the key light script now, again, we are going to see the ... basically just demonstrating that this is the condition that just fired here, cleaning up that stale state file, and now the key light is back over here. So yeah, it is pretty easy logic, but at the same time, it's pretty tricky. That's why I added so many comments here, because it is kind of just creating a couple of different states and just tracking all those with different conditions here. But all in all, not too bad. Something I slammed out in whatever it was, I don't know, an hour or two one day, the other day, just because, yeah, I wanted to have this script set up so it's really easy for me to record. And I actually have this like recording start script that I always run right before recording YouTube videos. And now I just run this little thing here as part of this where I'm like, okay, cool. I can just pop in the output that I want. And then for recording stop, it just runs it again, basically, which is going to toggle it to have the wallpaper back. But this script is, a lot more involved. It's not really just related to key lights. It does all sorts of different things too. Just quality of life thing to make it easier for me to record videos. But I wanted to show you, like, it's kind of building up little things here, which is kind of neat. So if we go back to the key light script here, again, just as a reminder, if you're not using SwayBG, maybe you're using aw like awww or another tool, then you can just change out these commands for whatever you happen to be using. So let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer all of them. If you liked the video, please give a thumbs up. Really does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.